Shalom. Before I start off, I'd like to first and foremost give all honor, glory, and praise to our Heavenly Father and His only begotten Son, Yahweh, by Hashem, Yahushai, by Hashem, Rachakadash. Double honors to our venerated apostles and elders of Great Millstone, taught us truth and rule well, and are the true leaders of the nation of Israel. This consists of you so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, as well as you Israelite foreigners scattered abroad. And just wanted to do another quick update. All right, on World War III in biblical prophecy, man. All right, because here it is. You have these supposed Trump and Putin meeting in the coming days. All right, which dealing with the conflict over there in Ukraine. They're trying to see an end to the Ukraine conflict. All right, in which we know that dealing with that conflict over there between Russia and the Ukraine. All right, Ukraine once being one of the members of the USSR. All right, and when it dissolved back in '91, Ukraine pretty much after the Soviet Union was disbanded, was trying to do their own thing. All right, and in recent years was on track to becoming a NATO ally. All right, in which Russia, Putin, seeing that the NATO was trying to pretty much encroach on his borders. All right, you had the invasion of Ukraine back in 2014, and since then you've had this ongoing conflict between Russia and Ukraine, which Ukraine had Russia, since the whole conflict had began, had been making strategic gains, and you had these EU nations and America, all right, under the Biden administration, pumping millions of dollars into that conflict, man, and sending it to Ukraine to fight against Russia. All right, and once this dude Trump got in, pretty much he was like that. He was trying to put an end to that. That all them dollars being sent over there. All right, and trying to back out America's support for Ukraine, which angered a lot of European nations. And now, all right, with these whole peace talks, which they're set to do a meeting to discuss an end to that conflict. The EU is saying that they want to be involved. All right, they don't want any backdoor deal, so to speak, between Putin and Trump. All right, and they want for Ukraine and the European Union to be involved in the peace talks. All right. So, France, Germany, Poland, the UK, Spain, Italy, and the Commission, they've pretty much come with a unified stance. All right, and they've been asserting that any peace talks have to include Europe. All right, because they emphasize that Europe's involvement is pretty much essential to achieve, peace and to preserve European and Ukrainian security interests. But we're going to see how it plays out. All right, and this could just be one of those things, which ultimately we know that pursuing biblical prophecy, Russia, all right, the Lord said he will put hooks in their jaws, turn them back to that USSR spirit. All right. So ultimately, there isn't going to be any peace. All right? Because eventually, going into this Third World War, Russia is eventually going to lead in shooting off missiles at this place, America, man, and destroying it. And eventually, again, the European Union, the nations that are allied with America are going to turn and side with Russia in that conflict. All right, so, these peace talks are ultimately going to be null and void. All right, pursuing biblical prophecy. So I just wanted to read an article or two going into it. All right. This is from Zero Hedge. What triggered the upcoming Putin-Trump? Yes, Slovakia. Had to do a part 2, but I'm reading this article from Zero Hedge. Kremlin aide Yuri Yushakov confirmed on Thursday that Putin and Trump could meet as soon as next week following Special Envoy Steve Witkoff's highly productive 3-hour-long meeting with his boss. A venue has already been agreed upon too. This comes a day before the expiry of Trump's shortened deadline to Putin. It's still unclear whether Trump will impose more sanctions on Russia and up to 100% tariffs on its trading partners. However, but he just doubled India's tariffs to 50% on the same day. All right, and Trump and his administration, with all these tariffs, that's gonna backfire on America. All right, because this place is an importing country. All right, all these tariffs on imported goods are gonna lead to prices going up. The effect of that is gonna lead to shortages. All right, and prices going up on imported goods. So this place, America, is done for. All right, and this "Make America Great Again" motto, right? Campaign slogan of Trump. Hey, this place will never live its former glory. The glory, the so-called glory days of America are over. All right, and the Lord is going to hasten this place's destruction. Let's see. It says, in any case, the question on everyone's mind is what is responsible for upcoming Putin-Trump summit, namely which of them offered the most concessions to the other and why. Coming right before the expiry of Trump's deadline to Putin, some observers believe that the latter is therefore capitulating. But it's also possible that the taco Trump always chickens out theory will be proven. There are several arguments for and against one of these two schools of thought. It says, at the same time, he might still hold firm in his opposition to a ceasefire unless his terms from June 2024 are met. Because Russia wants to liberate all occupied territories, the front lines might soon collapse to Russia's benefit. Russia wants to scare away Western peacekeepers from deploying to Ukraine. Some of the Russian people, public, don't want a ceasefire. And Putin might really believe that Trump is bluffing about further escalating the taco theory. I'm going to read that again. And Putin might really believe that Trump is bluffing about further escalating per the taco theory, right? Trump always chickens out. It says this segs into the reasons why Trump might offer the most concessions to Putin. Briefly, this could be because he soberly assessed the resultant escalation risk and wisely decided against it. They don't want this thing to blow into a full-scale Third World War. But it is, you know, because that's what prophecy states. All right, the second war is past, and behold, the third war coming quickly. Right, the Lord is preparing these nations for this war of Armageddon, mountain troops. All right, he's gonna lead these heathen nations, their armies over there to the east. All right, the valley of Yahweh-Shaphat, the valley of his judgment, and he's gonna pour upon them his indignation, man. All right, Yahweh Shai, Lord, is gonna pop out in the midst of it. You know, these nations fighting one against another and waste their armies, man. All right, and these nations are gonna fire their missiles at this place, America, and Yahweh Shai is gonna make his way over here to the Western Hemisphere and deal with this place. All right, with his chariots. It says, another point reads, expects that he'll succeed, and neither his new EU vassals nor the UK will sabotage this, and hopes to win the Nobel Peace Prize as a result. On the other hand, he might still hold firm his opposition to coercing Zelensky into Putin's demanded concessions for peace because he believes that any further escalation would be manageable, is still under the influence of warmongers like Lindsey Graham, believes that he can coerce concessions from Putin, expects that his new EU vassals in the UK will contribute to his potential escalation plans, and hopes that he'll win the Nobel Peace Prize if he gets Putin to agree to a totally lopsided deal. Everyone will soon discover whether it was Putin or Trump who miscalculated by not ending the conflict earlier. But they shouldn't forget that while China might not want Russia to lose, it might not want Russia to win either. As such, China might try to beat Russia to chase in clinching a new detente with the U.S., which could decelerate or even offset Trump's pivot back right to East Asia. All that's known for sure is that the coming week will reveal a lot about the factors that drive those three policies. You know, and China is going to be involved too. All right. This was another one from Politico. Zelensky says Europe must be a part of Russia-Ukraine peace talks. European Commission chief was not on a call this week in which Trump told Zelensky and European leaders that he plans to meet with Putin. From Kyiv, the European Union should not be sidelined from the Russia-Ukraine peace negotiations brokered by the United States, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said Thursday. The war is happening in Europe, and Ukraine is an integral part of Europe. We are already in negotiations on the EU accession, right? Therefore, Europe must be a participant in the relevant processes, Zelensky said after a phone conversation with German Chancellor Friedrich Merz. U.S. President Donald Trump informed Zelensky and the European leaders earlier this week that he plans to meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin and later hold a trilateral meeting with Putin and Zelensky. It says European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen was not on the call with Trump, a spokesperson for the Commission said on Thursday, but she was extensively debriefed by several EU leaders, the spokesperson told reporters. The Kremlin confirmed on Thursday that the two leaders plan to meet in the coming days. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said on Wednesday that following Special Envoy Steve Witkoff's meeting with Putin, the U.S. government has a better understanding of the conditions in which Moscow would be prepared to end the war. This quote from Rubio says, "We now have to compare that to what the Ukrainians and our European allies, but the Ukrainians primarily, of course, are willing to accept. And what you try to see is how far you can get these two positions closer. If we can get what the Ukrainians will accept and what the Russians will accept close enough, then I think there's an opportunity for the president to have a meeting that includes both Putin and Zelensky and try and close this thing out," Rubio said. Well, that's it on that. So they're trying to end this conflict, all right? But if this whole negotiation talk lopsides, then you already know the deal. I mean, again, pursuing biblical prophecy, pursuing Ezekiel 38, Russia is going to spearhead an assembly of nations against this place, America, man. All right? And eventually the EU is going to turn, all right, against this place, America. The beast shall hate the whore. And they're going to side with Russia in this conflict. And they too are going to shoot their missiles off at this place. All right? And you already see the division between them, you know? You really see it between the prime ministers of Turkey and I believe Turkey and Poland, I think. Slovakia, that was Hungary. Turkey and Hungary. You know, their prime ministers, you know, time and time again, spewed out anti-American rhetoric. You know, but that's going to be amongst all these EU members eventually. But anyway, just wanted to grab Isaiah 9 and 5. It says, "For every battle the warriors with confused noise and garments rolled in blood, but this shall be with burning and fuel of fire." Right? Going into this World War III conflict. Okay, in the ancient world, you had hand-to-hand combat. You know, conventional war was fought with swords, shields, clashing, and so forth. Confused noise, you know. Garments rolled in blood, because there would be a lot of slain and people getting hewn down and pierced. You know, but it says, "But this shall be with burning and fuel of fire." Because here in modern day, here in these modern times, technology is advanced past conventional warfare in the past. All right, now you have firearms, missiles, drones, so on. Right? But it says with burning and fuel of fire. Because ultimately, man, this thing is going to go down, right? This destruction that's going to take place is going to be by way of the ICBMs, the nuclear missiles, the ultimate sword of the Heavenly Father. And that technology was given to Esau, right? When you go into the book of Isaiah, Isaiah 54 and 16. "Behold, I have created a smith that bloweth the coals in the fire." Okay? Which you had them German Edomites, man. Them German Temanites, you know. They were largely responsible for the early development of that nuclear missile technology. Right? You had J. Robert Oppenheimer. He was a Temanite. You know, he was involved in the Manhattan Project, which created the atomic bomb. You know, and then you had them Temanites come with the V2 rocket program, which that propulsion system, you know, led to the development of intercontinental ballistic missiles. Right, that propulsion system. And as well as, them Temanites, they were responsible for espionage during that time, right? The Manhattan Project and spies relaying pretty much that them plans over to Russia. So Russia, you had Operation Osavayakim. They developed their own little boy and fat man, atomic bombs, and now Russia has ICBMs. Okay, and a handful of nations have ICBMs. All right. Behold, I've created the smith that bloweth the coals in the fire, which are them nuclear physicists, them scientists, and that bringeth forth the instrument for his work, which is the ICBM nuclear missile for the Lord's work against this place, America, right, in other parts of the world. Because, other parts of the world are going to get hit as well, but a majority of the destruction is going to take place in America, right? This is going to be that lake of fire. And I've created the waster to destroy. All right. Let's go to 2nd Ezra 16:1. Woe be unto thee, woe meaning destruction. Babylon and Asia. Woe be unto thee, Egypt and Syria. And these are all code words for America and those physical lands, but dealing with America, this is spiritual Egypt. Pursuing Revelation 11 and 8. Okay, spiritual sodomy Egypt. All right. Babylon the Great. Okay, this is the place of our captivity. Verse 2, gird yourselves up with cloths of sack, which is symbolic of mourning. Right, sackcloth is associated with mourning. Gird yourselves up with clothes of sack and hair. Bewail your children and be sorry, for your destruction is at hand. So this was written a couple thousand years ago. All right, which shows you that this is 2 Ezra 15:2 calls them to be written in paper, for they are faithful and true. This is going to happen exactly as it's written. America will be destroyed by way of them thermonuclear missiles. Okay, that is the judgment that the Lord has reserved for this place in these end times. And we're seeing the buildup of escalations up until that point. All right. So this place is done for. There's no restoration coming for this place. Trump, he's not going to succeed in making America great again. All right. And this place is trillions of dollars in debt. There's no way out of that. Okay. And all these tariffs that Trump is putting on these other nations, this place is an important nation. Nothing is made here. And all them tariffs are going to affect America, ultimately. So Trump, he is not making he is not making America great again. Okay? Again, them glory days for America are over. All right? What Trump is trying to do with these tariffs, and it ain't going to work. Verse 3, a sword is sent upon you, and who may turn it back? The sword is speaking about the ICBM nuclear missiles. Once they're fired off and they're sworn to their mark, the Spirit of the Lord is going to be behind the missiles. You're not going to be able to turn it back. Okay, and no missile defense system is going to turn the missiles back. All right? A fire is sent among you, and who may quench it? Plagues are sent upon you, and what is he that may drive them away? None. All right? Because it's the will of the Lord to bring all this to pass. Okay, and the Lord said he would send plagues on Egypt as before. There's modern day Egypt, America. Right? The ultimate plague being the ICBMs, the nuclear missiles pursuing. Let's get that. The book of Zechariah 14:12. And this shall be the plague wherewith the Lord shall smite all the people that have fought against Jerusalem. All these heathen nations have fought against Jerusalem. Pursuing Psalm 83, they've conspired against the Lord and his people. Right? Jerusalem dealing with the Lord's people. Their flesh shall consume away while they stand upon their feet, and their eyes shall consume away in their holes, and their tongue shall consume away in their mouth. Right? And those missiles, dealing with those missiles, they're going to melt people away. All right? That is the last trump. That's the last prophecy. All right? Some ICBMs are coming down upon this place, America. Guess what? The Lord is going to deliver his elect simultaneously. All right? And add to that destruction. 2/3 will be cut off and die here in Babylon, pursuing Zephaniah. I'm gonna grab that. Zephaniah 13 and 8. It's like Zechariah. Get them confused. Zechariah 13 and 8. And it shall come to pass that in all the lands of the Lord, 2 parts therein shall be cut off and die. It's dealing with 2/3 of the nation of Israel, roughly 66.6% of the nation, as opposed to that small remnant, the elect, 33.3% of all so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans over here in Babylon. All right. It says 2 parts therein shall be cut off and die, but the 3rd part shall be left therein. And that 3rd part is dealing with the elect. Right. Continuing, and I will bring the 3rd part through the fire. Right. And will refine them as silver is refined, and will try them as gold is tried. They shall call on my name, and I will hear them. I will say, it is my people, and they shall say, the Lord is my God. Okay, but the elect of the nation of Israel, right, as it says, I will bring them the 3rd part through the fire. They're gonna escape the thermonuclear destruction. Okay, they're not gonna be partakers of that lake of fire. Right, and dealing with the fire, you know, the adversity, the affliction and things that we go through in our walk, all right, is you know, refining us. You know, because through that, you know, affliction and adversity, the Lord is purging away our dross. But 2/3, are as dross to the Heavenly Father, you know, impurities, okay, undesirables. Ezekiel 22 and 20. Let me start at 19. Therefore, thus said the Lord Yahweh, because you are all become dross, behold, therefore will I gather you into the midst of Jerusalem, as they gather silver and brass and iron and lead and tin, which are, you know, metals, into the midst of the furnace, to blow the fire upon it, to melt it. So will I gather you in mine anger and my fury, and I will leave you there to melt you. Yeah, I will gather you and blow upon you in the fire of my wrath, and you shall be melted in the midst thereof. As silver is melted in the midst of the furnace, so shall you be melted in the midst thereof. And you shall know that I, the Lord, have poured out my fury upon you. Okay, and like as the Lord dealt with this in times past and brought against us the Assyrians, you know, the Babylonians, okay, and poured out his fury upon us, and you know, had us slain and brought into captivity. All right. Here in these latter times, you know, you have 2/3 of the nation of Israel, right, which the Lord is literally going to pour out his anger and fury, you know, indignation, and melt people here by way of the thermonuclear destruction. You know, you're going to have a lot of our people chipped up, freshly chipped up. You know, with the BCI, the brain computer interfaces, the RFID microchip in their hands. You know? And they're going to be destroyed over here in this place, America. But, let me grab Jeremiah 51:11. Matter of fact, Jeremiah 50:25. The Lord Yahweh hath opened up his armory and had brought forth the weapons of his indignation. Okay, indignation deals with righteous anger, but that's dealing with the ICBMs, the intercontinental ballistic missiles. Right, the Most High opened up his armory because he gave this technology to Esau, going back to the Smith. All right, so that he could use that weapon against them to destroy them. It says, "For this is the work of the Lord God of hosts in the land of the Chaldeans." The land of the Chaldeans is speaking about America. All right, in ancient Babylon, you had the Chaldees, Magi's, witches, and warlocks. And here in this modern day Babylon the Great, or the virgin daughter of Babylon, as called in the scriptures, you have the same exact thing. Witches and warlocks, these physicians that deal with pharmakia, which is witchcraft, right? People in the entertainment industry, a bunch of sellouts to Esau, doing satanic ritualistic rites and pushing enchantments on our people through entertainment media. You know, this is the modern day land of the Chaldees. All right, which, the Chaldees were the higher ups that dealt with all that. Witches and warlocks. Right? So this is talking about America. Continuing. Come against it from the utmost border, open the storehouses, cast it up as heaps, and destroy it utterly. Let nothing of it be left. All right. And after the destruction in this place, America, there's literally going to be nothing left. It's just going to be a waste, man. A wasteland. All right. Scriptures talk about how nothing but doleful creatures should dwell there. Right. Desert animals. This place is just going to be a desert after all is said and done. Jeremiah 51:11. Make bright the arrows, gather the shields. The arrows, it's not talking about ancient arrows, right? But, pretty much this is a similitude for the thermonuclear missiles. Make bright the arrows, gather the shields. The Lord hath raised up the spirit of the king of the Medes, right? The modern day Medes dealing with them Russians. But his device is against Babylon to destroy it, because it is the vengeance of the Lord, the vengeance of his temple. All right. And dealing with the arrows, right? It says make bright the arrows. They're bright because when they fall from the sky, there's that plasma coating around the warheads. But again, dealing with the king of the Medes, pursuing Ezekiel 38, the Lord is putting them hooks into the jaws of these Russians to kick off this Third World War, all right, with these other nations against America, man. So, we're gonna see, all right, how these talks go down. But we know, as it pertains to biblical prophecy, man, all right, there won't be any peace. Because World War III is gonna unfold. Anyway, in closing, I'd like to give all praises, honor, and glory once again to Yahweh, Shem El Shai, Shem Kakwadash, double honor to our apostles and elders, great millstone, to artists of truth.